Welcome back, everyone. A migrant caravan heading from Central America to the U.S. border.
Growing outrage over the death of a 7-year-old Guatemalan girl.
We want strong borders, and we want no crime.
Administration announced the new asylum measure.
The chaos, confusion, and
immigrants,
anger.
government assistance. According to the proposal, legal immigrants would be denied lawful permanent residency if they...
Imagine for a second, right? If you were working towards something, a degree or anything, right? And sort of like high school, and you know that at year 12, you're supposed to get your degree and you're with everyone else, right? And you've done the time, you've done all the coursework, and at year 12, everybody in their class gets the degree except for you because your parents live on X Street. And the people on X Street have a quota because there's so many people who live on X Street, right, that you have to wait longer. And the stress of that is the stress that anyone can understand, where you see someone next to you achieving something that you can't achieve for something outside of you. We've all done the coursework. We've all gone to the classes. Why can't I graduate now? I have to wait because there's so many people on my street in front of me. That's the stress that it really causes the clients. It's a tax on the mental state. It's a financial cost to the company if they're doing or to the individual, right? It is basically someone who could have a child today. If I'm an Indian national and I had a child today that was 1, my child could be 10 or 11 before I'm filing for a green card.
I think one of the biggest things is just how complicated our immigration laws are. It's been compared, I think, by a former chief immigration judge to the tax code and its complexity, just because of the breadth of the law and then also because it's ever changing. And then complicating that even further, the visa bulletin is updated every single month, and it tells you what the priority dates are for the different categories. They are broken down in some cases by country, so people with high volumes of immigration are subject to longer wait times. For example, people from the Philippines and Mexico and India, they're subject to further wait time. For example, siblings of U.S. citizens right now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's about in the range of 13 to 15 years waiting to be able to move with the process. So I think given the complexity of the law, it's hard for people to represent themselves pro se, certainly, but then it can also be hard to find representation because it may be expensive. Private attorneys, I believe the going rate in the area right now for an asylum case is about $10,000 for an asylum case, which is a lot of money. There's not, unfortunately, enough people that could do pro bono or low bono services. And so I definitely think there's a need for more representatives or even appointed counsel the way that we have in the criminal system because it is so complicated.
A lot of times the issues that arise are simply because it takes so long to get an application approved. And so if you have to wait 7, 9, 12 months or more for an application for work authorization, well, that impacts your plans.
It puts people in this weird limbo place where they're waiting for years. They're allowed to be here because they have a pending application, but they don't really know what's going to happen in their case, and they don't really know when they're going to be heard, when they're even going to get the decision. Just because they're heard in 2022 doesn't mean they get the decision in 2022. So there's a lot of uncertainty, right? Because the political landscape, the legal landscape can change while they're waiting for their asylum case to go on. You may think 2018, they have an excellent case. Who knows what's going to happen in 2022, how the law is going to change, how their personal circumstances are going to change. So you definitely see that sort of psychological effect that the waiting period has on them.
The whole immigration system is a product of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. and it's been amended many times, but kind of the structure of the immigration law is old.
Those numbers were set, if I'm not mistaken, in the 50s, and they haven't been updated in a long time. I don't think they're reflective of the general immigration that we see worldwide.
Kind of the structure of the immigration law is old, and usually the world changes at a rate faster than the laws can keep up with, and so that as time goes on, it becomes more complicated.
If immigration is modernized, I see a better balance among the American people of understanding that we're still a nation of immigrants and everything works, right? The reason that we believe that everything doesn't work is because the government is sort of hammering it on. There's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of people who are undocumented. And that's happened since the 1980s. We've been kicking the can down rather than addressing the issue. Once we address the issue like we did with healthcare or we did with Social Security, it becomes something that everybody knows exists and everybody's fine with, right? Our society has grown, so therefore the number of immigrants that we need to fill our positions has grown because we have a very vibrant economy. Most times they're coming here to create an opportunity to create more American jobs, right? They're innovators. Therefore, we should revamp our immigration system so that it works for everyone.
Also, there needs to be more clerks, there need to be more staffers, more receptionists, the people behind the scenes that are helping process these applications as well. We need all of that in the immigration court system.
And so making sure that we let the American people know that there's no limit to something that we're giving away, like love. I can love everybody. And that there's no race to get to it, right? And that if there is something holding people back, it's something arbitrarily set by Congress, these quotas, right, from the 1965s, to sort of say only so many Chinese nationals this year, so only so many Indians this year, right? And as an African American, I will tell you that most of those quotas address people of color, right? That's problematic, right? If they're here doing a job, why do we need a quota for those people? What are we afraid of? We're all Americans, regardless of our race and ethnicity. So therefore, the concept of controlling so many people from certain countries should no longer exist.
Time is spent resolving these logistical problems, and it's kind of distracting from focusing on the student or the scholar as a person. And it even takes people beyond maybe what the reason that they got into the profession, which is to help.
Just having to hear these stories all the time, day after day after day. I see the struggles that they've been through in their lives, and I see the potential for them to be excellent contributing members to our society. And it's hard that a lot of our laws, instead of being based on, well, you're a good person, you lived here for 10 years, you paid your taxes, you contributed, it's a lot of time, well, what awful thing happened to you? That can be a basis for your form of relief.
We're all immigrants, right? And that there should not be a fear of others in this country. People are people, right? We either need you or we don't need you. What race you are, what sex you are, should have no bearing on your immigration benefits. Can you do the job? So I think that's the biggest challenge of people sort of thinking that if people don't look like me, they don't share my values. And that's the problem when you start thinking about immigration, where people don't have to look like you to share your values. What they have to share is the Constitution.